Welcome to this educational program. This module discusses the form and function of the cavities in the bones of the face and skull, called the sinuses. There are other modules available that discuss the inflammation of the sinuses, a condition called rhinosinusitis. Please feel free to view this presentation as many times as necessary. You may also use the player on your left to repeat slides or to skip through them in any order you wish. Some slides in this presentation show detailed illustrations, and you may wish to pause the presentation at times to take them all in. The paranasal sinuses, or sinuses for short, are the four pairs of mucus-lined hollow spaces inside the bones of the face and skull. They are located on either side of the nose, the maxillary sinuses, in between the eyes, the ethmoid sinuses, behind the eyes, the sphenoid sinuses, and in the forehead, the frontal sinuses. Though their exact function is unknown, it is thought that the sinuses help to warm, humidify, and filter inhaled air, regulate pressure within the nose, contribute to immune defense, lighten the weight of the skull, give resonance to the voice, absorb shock from blows to the face, and contribute to facial growth. By producing half a liter to a liter of mucus each day, which empties into the nasal cavity, the sinuses contribute greatly to air filtration. Tiny hairs called cilia propel the mucus into the canals, or meatai, of the nasal cavity through tiny openings called ostia. The anterior or front ethmoid sinuses, the frontal sinuses, and the maxillary sinuses all empty their mucus into the middle meatus, creating a congested area called the osteomeatal complex. The posterior or back ethmoid sinuses and the sphenoid sinuses empty mucus into the superior meatus. The osteomeatal complex is central to sinus function and is particularly vulnerable to mucus buildup, swelling, and infection. Any obstruction of this structure can result in inflammation of the frontal, ethmoid, or maxillary sinuses. This inflammation or swelling of one or more sinuses is called rhinosinusitis. This can be caused by anything that impedes airflow into the sinuses and or mucus clearance out of the sinuses. These include infection, allergy, irritants such as tobacco smoke, anatomical obstruction, foreign bodies, disease, dryness, and certain medications. For more information on this condition, please refer to the module in this series titled Understanding Rhinosinusitis. The sinuses start out as pea-sized pouches and usually reach adult size by adolescence, with the frontal sinuses growing until about age 20. Present at birth, the maxillary and ethmoid sinuses are the sinuses most commonly involved in childhood infections, while the frontal and sphenoid sinuses develop later. The maxillary sinuses are located in the upper jawbone. They are pyramid-shaped, have a volume of about 15 milliliters, or 1 tablespoon, and are usually the largest sinuses. In most individuals, each maxillary sinus has a single ostium 2.5 millimeters in diameter. The ostium sits high in the sinus cavity, which means that mucociliary clearance in the maxillary sinuses has to move up against gravity. The ethmoid sinuses are located in the ethmoid bone, which forms part of the eye socket. They are also pyramid-shaped and have a combined volume of 15 milliliters. They have an anterior or front and posterior or back portion, each with many cells separated by thin bony partitions. Each cell is drained by an independent ostium, 1 to 2 millimeters in diameter. The frontal sinuses are located in the frontal bone, which forms the forehead and upper parts of the eye sockets. They have an average volume of 6 to 7 milliliters, just over a teaspoon, and are usually funnel-shaped. The frontal sinuses have their ostia low in the sinus cavity, which allows for easier mucus drainage and thereby less risk of infection. The frontal sinuses begin to develop around age 4, and sometimes don't develop at all. About 10% of individuals have none. The sphenoid sinuses are located in the sphenoid bone, in the middle of the skull, deep behind the nose. They are divided in half by a septum, have a volume of about 7.5 milliliters, and can have ostia as small as half a millimeter in diameter. At birth, they are filled with bone marrow, soft spongy tissue, and remain undeveloped until about age 3. To summarize, the sinuses are air cavities in the bones of the face and skull that open into the nose through small openings called ostia. They include the maxillary, ethmoid, frontal, and sphenoid sinuses, 2 of which are present at birth, that begin as tiny pouches and mature until young adulthood. Sinuses produce and empty mucus and can become inflamed and infected when the function of the cilia, mucus, or ostia is impaired. Inflammation of the sinuses is called rhinosinusitis, which seems to particularly affect a congested area in the sinuses called the osteomeatal complex, an area central to sinus functioning. Other modules in this series include Understanding Rhinosinusitis, the Pathophysiology of Rhinosinusitis, and the Management of Rhinosinusitis. Here are just a few of many resources available to educate you on the sinuses. These resources may also assist you. We sincerely hope that this module has furthered your understanding of the sinuses. We wish you the best for the future, and thank you once again for viewing this educational program.